So to complete your Iceberg Maxi Dress, you'll need fabric of your choice, coordinating thread, a seam gauge, seam ripper in case you make any mistakes, fabric scissors or rotary cutters, snippers if you choose, and pins, pin cushion. I plan to use my serger, and this is the thread that I currently have in my serger. An additional supply for you would be pattern weights, and I just picked these up from my local hardware store. Large washers like these, or you can use whatever you have around your home to hold your pattern piece on your fabric. You're going to lay your fabric out with selvage edges together, which would be this edge with the writing on it. Now I don't have them completely touching because folding your fabric this way will help you to save fabric and use your fabric in the most efficient way as possible. So we're going to start with the front pattern piece, and we're going to place that on the fold like so. If you're using pattern weights, you are going to place your pattern weights on your pattern piece so that it does not move or shift while you're cutting. So I like to use my rotary cutter because it's easier for me than my scissors. And I'm just gonna go around, cut this pattern piece out. So you also don't want to forget about your notches. And I just use my snips. So there's a line here. I'm going to snip and then snip here. So this is my front, cutting one on the fold. This is my front piece, so I'm just gonna clip it with one clip. That way I'll know it's my front piece. Then you're just gonna move this one out of the way, set that one to the side. Once you've cut out your first piece, you'll refold your fabric because our back piece is also cut one on the fold. You're gonna take your pattern weights again and place them on your pattern, especially on any places where your fabric may be not laying completely flat. Cut your pattern piece. Then you're gonna cut your notches again, and your notches is where your pattern pieces will meet when you get ready to sew it together. I'm gonna put 2 clips on this one for my back piece. So I have that one cut out, and I'm gonna set this one to the side, and we'll get ready to cut out our sleeve. Again, you want to maximize the fabric that you have. So because we're not cutting out any very long pieces, again, I am going to take my fabric from here and I'm going to fold that in half. Because remember, you still have to draft your neckband. And I will show you how to do that. You're going to take your sleeve piece. It says to cut 1 pair, and we know that a pair is 2. So when you put it down like this, and it's not on the fold, you're going to end up with 2 sleeves that mirror each other. Get your pattern weights. Cut our notches. You're going to bring back your pattern pieces. Do is make sure you find the center back and center front of your front and back pieces. And the piece that I have in my hand right now is the back piece, and I have those clipped, and we cut this on the fold so it's already in half. So what you want to do is take your fabric scissors or your snips and make a small snip here at the fold, so you know that that's your center point. Then you're going to take your front piece while it's still folded. You're going to do the same. Just go ahead and fold that over. And find the center of your sleeve and make your snip right there in the middle. Before we move forward, I will say that this pattern calls for stay tape, and I am not using stay tape just because this knit is pretty stable. But if you'd like, you can use your stay tape and just follow the instructions for using that on the instructions included with the pattern. You're going to open up your back piece, right side up, and then you're going to take your front pattern piece, open that up, and you're going to lay that right on top of your back piece, right side facing, right side, right side, and lay those on top of each other. So you match your shoulder points. I pin in the center, then on the outside, you're going to do this on both shoulders. Take this to the sewing machine. You're going to sew 3/8 of an inch across the shoulder seam on both sides, and then you bring it back here. Don't forget to backstitch at the beginning and the end. I prefer to use my serger, but if you're using your sewing machine, just make sure you use a zigzag stitch so that it will allow your garment to stretch. And you're going to sew with 3/8 inch seam allowance. Then you do the other side as well, same way. So once you have your shoulder seams stitched, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to match at my center. So your center notch should line up with your sleeve seam. Pin there. Then find your single knot or double notch first. And then you're going to match your ends. Then you'll come to the back. Do the same thing. Match up your double notches and your ends. And then what you'll do for the remainder of your sleeve, you just go around and ease the rest of that sleeve in until you have it all pinned. What I mean by ease, what I do is I look at both of these points the way I do it. And I find the center, I kind of eyeball the center for that, and I pin it there. You can use more or less pins, whatever you need, and then I'll find the center of that. Pin there. And if you need, you can find the center of this end, pin there. If you need less pins, that's fine too. If you need more, that's also okay. Then I'll go to this part of my sleeve, do the same here, then do the same thing on the other side. At your other sleeve the same way. Then you're going to take it to your sewing machine and you're going to sew from one end to the other. If you're using sewing machine, backstitch at the beginning, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way to the end, and backstitch at the end. And repeat your sewing for your other sleeve, and then meet me back at your sewing table. You're going to match your underarm seams and pin. Then you're going to match any notches and pin at the end. And then add more pins, as many more pins as you need to keep your pieces together to make it easy for you to sew it up once you take it to your machine. And then you'll come down to the side seam of the dress. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to match your notches, pin at the end, then pin between. Then once you have it all pinned in place, you're going to take it to your sewing machine. Sew from the top of your sleeve, all the way down to the bottom. Don't forget to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. So if you did not already do a fit test on your garment in the previous step, you can go ahead and do so now. Or if you did and you want to test the fit again, now's the time to do that. First, you're going to take this to your ironing board. The hem allowance of your dress, which is the bottom portion of your dress, is going to be 1.5 inches. So you can take your seam gauge or your ruler, fold it back to 1.5 inches. I'm going to pin that. This is also 1.5 on the other side. Pin that. Make sure you don't grab the other side of your dress. 1/2 inches. And you'll repeat this step all the way around your hem. Once you've done that, you can take this to your ironing board and just kind of iron down your crease so that it stays. And you can leave your pins in and go to the sewing machine, and you'll sew all the way around using 1.5 inches seam allowance. Once you've pinned your hem all the way around, you'll take it to your sewing machine and you'll sew right along the edge here to finish your hem. Now the other method is to just take this straight to your ironing board, take your seam gauge, measure it out, and press your hem as you go. Once you've done your hem, you'll do the same thing with your sleeves, except its hem will be 1 1/4 inches. Okay? Then once you're done that, we'll come back here. Now that we have our hem pinned and pressed all the way around, you're going to take this to your sewing machine. You're going to put it on your zigzag stitch. I'm going to increase my stitch length to 2.5. And I'm going to change my stitch width to 0.5. On your sewing machine, use whichever zigzag stitch you like. Then we're going to sew it all the way around. When you get to those bulky areas like sewing over the seam, you may want to give your fabric just a slight tug, not, too big of a push, just to help it go underneath that presser foot. And I tend to slow down when I'm going over bulk, just so that I don't break my needle. I don't sew over any pins. I know there are people who say that there are pins that you can sew over, and some people do it. I don't. I just have a fear of a needle breaking or flying in my eye, or a sharp point of a pin being chipped off. I mean, I already feel like you should sew with goggles. So, I mean, I won't be sewing over any pins. Not on purpose. So now you take your seam gauge And for the hem of your sleeve, you're going to do 1 1/4 inch seam allowance. Check it, pin it. You're going to go all the way around. You'll do this on one sleeve, and then you'll do it on the other. Most sewing machines have a removable arm, and that's what I do for my sleeves because they are narrow. I take this off, slide my sleeve on. My neckband is going to be 2 3/4 inches in height, so I'm going to find that first. This is only 17 inches. So I will have to add 4 inches to this measurement, and I'm going to go ahead and make this perpendicular line so that I'll know I have everything straight. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. So this is my neckband. So what I do, I mark all of my pattern pieces that I make. It's neckband. This is 2 3/4 inches by 21 inches. And then I'll add whatever garment it goes to. So this is the Iceberg Maxi Dress. If you want to write the pattern company, you can. You don't have to. But this is Alice and Company. So now you'll cut this piece out. So now this is your pattern piece for your neckband, and you're going to take your fabric and make sure that if your fabric does not have a 4-way stretch, make sure that you put the length of your neckband in the direction that has the most stretch. This is where I folded my fabric, and that way doesn't have a whole lot of stretch. You see that? But this way, the part that's going to go around my body has the most stretch. So I am going to lay my neckband on my fabric, if I can get it right. I'm going to lay it this way, just like we cut our pattern piece on the fold. I'm going to cut it in the direction of where the fabric is going to go around my body. I have this folded, so I could fold this and cut it on the fold, or I could open it up and cut out the entire piece. It's up to you how you want to do that, but your neckband does not have to be cut on the fold. You can actually open it all the way up and cut it that way. So that's what I'm gonna do. Put those down. You're gonna take your rotary cutter or your scissors, and you're going to cut out your neckband. Put this to the side. So now you're gonna take your neckband, you're gonna fold it in half with the wrong sides together. So the side of the fabric that you want to show will face you. You need to pin it. You can pin it. And then once you have your neckband folded in half, you're going to take it to the ironing board, and you are going to press your crease line. Once you do that, we'll come back and we'll get ready to sew. So now that you have your neckband crease pressed, you're going to put your two short ends together like so. If you need a pin, you can pin it, but you may not. You're going to take this to your machine and you're going to sew your short end together. So with your neckband seam, that one seam you have, it should be still on the outside. And we're going to quarter the neckband. And when I say quarter, we're going to make 3 more notches on your neckband. So you have this seam here. If you fold that in half, you're going to clip into that. That gives you your first one. So you have that. And then what you'll do, you'll match that notch to your back seam. And this will be a notch on this side. And with that center seam and that notch still matched, you'll notch the other side. So now, with your seam still on the outside, you'll open up your neckband and you'll slip your dress inside of the neckband. And you're going to match the back seam that you just sewn up to the notch on the back of your dress. And then you're going to match the notch on the front to the center front notch of your neckband. Fabric doesn't want to act right. Okay, then you're going to take your shoulder seam, the shoulder seam, you're going to match that up with your side notch. And then you'll do the same thing on the other side. Take your shoulder seam and match it to the notch and pin it. And then you'll add more pins to the rest of your neckband so that it's secure for you to sew. You can add as many or as few pins as you like. Just make sure you have all 3 layers, the 2 layers of your neckband and your dress. Okay, so now that you've done that, you're going to take it to your sewing machine and you're going to sew all the way around your neckband along the raw edges with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and start at your center back. And if you don't know where that is, that seam that you sewn your neckband together, you're going to start right back there. And now that you have your neckband finished, you can turn that out and you have your neckband completed on your dress. You have your Iceberg Maxi Dress. You can try it on for further fitting adjustments and you're done.